The type of growth that people are used to when they're walking down the traditional path, and the type of growth that society teaches us, it's so different to the growth curve that you can see in the entrepreneurial journey. Welcome back to a brand new episode of The Art of E-Commerce. To my right, we've got Tony, the co-host, and today we're talking about a very juicy topic, the topic of the different phases of the entrepreneurial journey. More specifically, we are dissecting my journey from going, by being broke, pretty much, right? It's about having $0 to my name. I don't want to sound cliche, right? Like typical. I went from being broke, sitting on that couch with $7 to my no, but essentially having pretty much close to $0 to my name, to now making 137K with my agency. And so I wanna dissect that journey. I know I'm gonna get some fiery questions from my man Tony, and yeah, we're gonna essentially share some of the mindsets, some of the paradigms that you need to embrace and go through in order to go through different phases, right? Sure, you might look at that number 100K plus per month, and you might say, well, that's way too much. Yeah, like you might not be at a different at that stage specifically, but we're gonna talk about what it takes to go from 0 to your first client, and from 0 to 10K per month, and then from 10K to 50K per month, and then from 50K to 100K per month, etc., etc. So, without further ado, let's get right into it.
For sure, and I think one of the things that you say that I really like is you give the picture from a 30,000 feet view, and then you take it step by step, like what's coming next and all these things, right? And I think the way we're gonna do things today is really gonna allow us to break down the mindsets of what it takes to break these thresholds, and for you to realize that like your chapter 20 is not my chapter 1. And there are differences, and you've gone through things to be able to be at where you're at. It's not like you just woke up one day and made that, or that you went from 0 to 137K. Like, of course, it was a much faster process than the vast majority of people would manage to make it.
Right.
But having said that, there was a journey, there were transformations, and the point we really want to get to is dissecting all of that.
For sure, and I feel like a lot of people think it's this, I don't know, like, and this is me included, right? And that's one thing about this podcast is we never talk about anything that we haven't gone through ourselves. Like, that is the number one rule. Like, we're never gonna talk about something that we haven't done ourselves, and we're never gonna throw some shade because we've been through it, right? And so before starting, right, I thought the journey looked like this kind of steady path, and maybe you went from like, this person who didn't have money to now having money, right? When in reality, it's just like you have to understand that you need to change your mindset to match the type of objectives and the type of growth that you want to see, and the way you shift your self-identity and your and your beliefs around yourself, that is correlated to the outcomes and the results that you get with your business. So I'm excited to dig into it.
I mean, to start off, I think it's also important to make the point that if you were to classify agencies and agency owners in terms of how much they're making, you'd find that, like, again, as with most things in life, but like the vast majority are right at the bottom, either having 0 or 1, maybe potentially 2 clients, right? Why do you think that so many people go into this space really like with the hopes and dreams of making it at least to that 10K a month mark, which really is like let's just say like the agency, like at least the initial like first goal, right? For most people going in. Why would you say that so many people, the vast majority of people, never end up making it past step 0?
Because they're lazy. Let me explain. Right? I don't mean people are lazy. People do have the work ethic, but I feel like a lot of people before being in the space and understanding what it is to commit to anything. I'm not saying agency. I think the agency path is pretty simple. Nothing is easy, right, in life, especially things that especially great things, right? They don't come easy. But people have this misconception and I feel part of the problem is obviously the marketing around it by a bunch of the people in the space with no animosity, but it's just the way it is. It's portrayed to be this very easy thing, and so I feel like a lot of people go into it with the wrong perception, and they realize that, oh shit, it takes work. Like anything in life. I'm not sure why it comes as a surprise to a lot of people, but as soon as they realize it takes work, they kind of back off, right? And they go back to their comfort zone. They go back to their little cocoon, their little cave, where they were very comfortable, and they just kind of stop pursuing it. So that's a false reason. They get into it and they're like, oh, this actually takes work. I'm a bit uncomfortable, which is normal because you're leveling up, right? And so I don't want to do this. That's the first thing. The second thing is a lack of guidance. Right? So if it's not that, it's a lack of guidance, because a lot of people have the work ethic. They're like, I know this is going to take work, but let me just bang my head against the wall a bunch, right? And so they lack this guidance, and the first time they experience a roadblock, an obstacle, they experience so much friction that they give up, right? Because they don't have someone who can walk them through the journey of how to overcome that, and that is, that can be frustrating. And the third one, I would say, is their identity does not match their reality just yet. So the reason why getting that first line is tough is obviously it has to do a bit with track record and case studies and all this stuff. But I talk about this in my mentorship. Like, you don't need that to sign the first line. A lot of my mentees, they're not even tapping into that to sign the first line. It's a completely different thing. But the main problem and the main obstacle is the fact that they don't believe they are agency owners. They don't believe they are e-commerce growth hackers and experts, right? They don't believe their self-identity does not match the outcome, the result they want in their life, right? And so since they don't have any clients, they don't think they're an agency owner, and since they don't think they're an agency owner, their actions don't reflect what an agency owner would look like. And so you have this, it's really tough, right? And it's such a subtle thing, but your self-identity basically, it correlates to the way you behave, the way you carry yourself, the type of behaviors and habits you have in place for your life, right? For example, if you see yourself as a healthy person, you will never walk into a candy store and have the temptation of buying candy, right? Or stuffing yourself with chocolate, right? Like, you won't have these temptations because you don't view yourself as the type of person that would, fall, into those temptations. So I think those are the main three reasons why most people find it so freaking tough to start anything, right? Number one, they realize that they have to put in the work, and most people are not up for it. Number two, they don't have the right guidance, and so the first obstacle comes their way, they don't know how to react to it, right? And they don't know how to overcome it, and they're stuck in a rut. Number three is that lack of, the problem with their self-identity. Once they fix that, and it comes down to getting a few wins under your belt, once they fix that, it really goes uphill from that.
I mean, a common thing in a lot of industries, but it's like this concept of the first client being the hardest and the most important. Would you subscribe to that?
I think, yeah, why not? I do think it's probably the hardest one. I don't think it's the hardest thing in business. I think when you start scaling to 7 figures, that's really like when you experience a lot of chaos and you're really stressed out, as in like you have to learn a lot of stuff. That's why I always think, and I obviously I have a lot of empathy, right? Because I've been there, right? I've been there, signed my first line, but it generally doesn't take a genius to get to 10K per month. It really doesn't. It's a very achievable figure if you commit to mastery.
I mean, kicking off from there, if you had to, and I mean, we're breaking down the stages of the journey here, but from the point you started until 10K, if you had to look back and give yourself advice, or at least look back at the person you were at the end of that cycle, what would you say were like defining characteristics, like the mindset you needed to have, the person you needed to view yourself as?
To get to that 10K month mark?
Yeah.
Right. I think the main thing was the fact that I stayed really consistent but not rigid. And what I mean by this, and this is a bit more esoteric within like the agency specifics to the agency, but what I mean by that is I stayed consistent with my routines, I stayed consistent with my work, but at the same time I wasn't so rigid that I wasn't willing to optimize and look at what's coming back and see what's working and see what's not, and do more of what's working and do less of what isn't, right? So I think that's like the main thing, being able to put in the work. But a lot of people they get lost in the work because you're in the trenches every single day, but you're doing you're doing the exact same thing over and over again without getting input, without getting feedback from someone who knows much more, without trying new things by yourself and having that independent thinking, that creative thinking, to try different things, different approaches. So that's the main thing, right? That I would say. And the second thing is, I push this a lot. I'm a big preacher of the power of the irresistible offer and the power of having the right team. And when you match those two, when you really have given a lot of thought into what is your irresistible offer, how what's the one thing that's going to appeal to your market, that when you put it in front of them, they're going to go, I want that, right? Whether it's you're pitching a demo or a strategy session, or whether you're already pitching your service, what is that one thing that's going to make them go, I really need them, right? For example, I just had I was checking my email just now before the podcast, and I usually never ever respond to a sales email, right? Because most, quite frankly, are really bored. But I had this guy reach out to me, offering email marketing services and copywriting, and the copy was just really, really strong, and it was really particular to me. Like it was like he knew my problem. This is something that I've been missing, that I've been lacking, and it was really particular to me, and it's kind of like an irresistible offer. Like I didn't even have to think about it twice. So that's that, and then obviously when you match it with the right team, I spent a lot of time going through applicants, understanding what I wanted in my team member. I let go of the people that I started with, and that's another thing that you come to realize as you scale. And it's kind of like it's a harsh truth and a harsh thing that you have to face, that the people that worked at a point in the journey, they're not the people that will take you to the next level. Sometimes you can either train them, right? But sometimes you cannot stretch them anymore. Like there's no more capacity to them. There's a ceiling for them. Like certain people are not cut out for a certain level of skill, and that's completely fine. It's nothing personal, right? But understanding that you need to find those other people that will help you reach that next level.
Big tips there. And I mean, that's to get to the 10K mark.
Yeah.
From if we were to classify your journey, I'd say the next big leap or milestone would be from 10 to 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that, you're adding more clients, there's more complexity. I'm assuming the team got bigger as well. Again, what were the kind of differences and mindsets that you had to go through there?
To be honest with you, it didn't really add much more complexity. And the reason why that is because what I did is I asked myself, how can I scale this up without adding more complexity now? And the obvious, well, not the obvious answer, I wish that had been as obvious, but the obvious, the answer then was I need to make it all about, well, not all about, right? Still have the fixed fees that I was getting from clients, but make it about the performance-driven incentives, and make sure that we really hone in on the process to results, make sure that we develop this 360 approach when it comes to e-commerce growth, so that we're not just doing Facebook ads, we're not the typical, regular Facebook ads agency, but we may focus mainly on paid ads, right? But we look at the whole funnel. We look at the landing page, we look at the email marketing, we look at the offer that they're pushing. We'll give them tips on the content creation side, the ad creation side of things, right? And so having this 360 approach and this a percentage of performance gave us the ability to get better results for clients and then make ourselves a lot much more money. Makes sense?
Was that something that you started implementing once you reached 10K? And is looking back at it, would you have started earlier?
I would have definitely started earlier, and that's why I push my mentees start now. And it's probably this limiting belief that is I'm not worthy of charging percentages, because my process results is not quite exquisite. Bullshit. There's a lot of clients that I wish I would have charged them a percentage, and we developed that, we developed the relationship, and eventually we started charging percentages, right? Especially because our retention rate is so high that maybe they started with us with a lower fixed fee, and now the fixed fee has increased, but also we're taking a big percentage home every single month. So I wish I would have definitely structured the deals in that way sooner.
And another thing you touched on there, which I think is, of course, is very impressive, but the fact that you have such a long retention with your clients, would you say that's down to the results you get them almost exclusively, or does the fact that like you build a relationship and like you cultivate and you know each other on a one-on-one level play into it as well?
It's funny, right? Because and I'll probably feature this in a vlog, but when I set up my agency in London, right, I had a London address, and one of my FOSS clients, they actually sent me a check for that FOSS invoice, and I had to send it over to your place, and that check has just been sitting for like 2 years, and now I finally got it because you came over. I probably will do an unboxing of it, and it's pretty funny, right, to see, and these guys these clients are still with us, so it's been like more than close to 2 years now, so that's pretty crazy. What does it come down to? It comes down to the results are important, right? But one of the great things about the 360 approach as well is that the switching cost for these clients is so high, because we add so much value that's not reflected in our fixed fee. Like these guys are not only making me money on Facebook ads, but they tell me how I should structure my landing page. They tell me what content I should create. They tell me how the sales funnel should look. They tell me how I should plan my launches. And so it's this. We really come in as a growth partner. We reduce complexity by focusing on one core service, paid ads, plus a bit of marketing for a bunch of our clients, but increasing that switching cost. Right? And the second thing would be obviously the communication on board. They get addicted to our communication on reporting protocols because we're so transparent, we're so honest, and we're they see our faces quite a bit, right? Like they generally build a relationship with them, with us, and it's really hard to fire a friend, and someone who generally shows love and cares about your brand and understands it at such a deep level. And it comes back again to the switching costs, right? When you understand the brand at such a deep level, like you understand what their messaging is, what they stand for, what the team looks like, right? You're not going to do that again. Like you're not going to hire another agency because it's going to take them a bunch of time to learn the brand. Maybe they'll never do it, right? Maybe they'll never be able to learn the brand to the extent that we have.
Powerful stuff. And to go on to that last bit, because I do remember at the start of the year you telling me like I think 100K a month with the agency at some point this year is possible.
Yeah.
And here we are like just over halfway and you've already done it, right? And I think that's been repeatedly the case with quite a few metrics you've set for yourself over the years, that like you set these big targets and then you hit them way early, right?
Yeah.
I mean, before we go into that whole concept of hitting targets and striving to achieve them before you even meant to, what would you say were the biggest changes between 50 and 100K?
It's a tough question. I think it came down to me learning how to give up control, learning how to give my team members more responsibility and have them grow to the occasion. That's really what it came down to. Obviously, tweaking my funnels and finding ways to put more input into them, finding ways to make it to reach more people through content and all that stuff. So more scale when it comes to the sales and outward side of things, but also just giving up more control and really trusting my people. And so I was able to take more time off to do reflecting, to make some key changes or implementations that really took the business to the next level. So that's really the main thing.
So that's very interesting as well, right? Because at least from what I've seen, what I've spoken to you about this year, like not to say that you haven't worked as hard as ever, but you've taken more time off and taken more time for yourself than you ever have before probably in your life, right? And yet you still managed to grow at this pace and you still managed to hit the goals well early.
Yeah.
Do you think those things were interrelated?
I think so. You could say is because I had more time to reflect and all that. I also think it comes down to the fact that I just let myself go a bit more and I wasn't so rigid on my structures. And the really important point about what I mean by that is, if you're looking to make a transition and a big shift in your life, you cannot be so rigid with the current structures that have gotten you there. Well, what got you there won't get you to the next milestone. And that's something that's something that I've always struggled a bit with, and I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs do as well, because let's say you got to 10K a month and you're writing out 10 affirmations and you were doing 50 minutes of meditation and you were doing this and this and that, right? Logically, you're gonna say, well, I still need to do these things to get to the next level. And I'm not saying it could be that you have to do those things and even more, right? But oftentimes it's like you have to let go completely and be more, allow yourself to be more creative, or completely change up your schedule. Or like, one of the things I've been doing is my morning routine has really condensed, and typically I just get, I'll do meditation, I'll do a bit of affirmation, I'll look over my gratitude, but I'll get straight into work, right? Or like my point is, I've been less rigid, and you could, the way that manifests is obviously I've allowed myself to travel and enjoy the money that I'm making, but also by being less rigid with my structures, I've been able to invite, new opportunities and new ways of thinking. So yeah, it's a big lesson that I've learned, that you need to let go of the structures that have gotten you to where you are, because it's really easy to get stuck.
A point on that though, sometimes the things you do to get you to where you are, yes, you need to get rid of them to move to the next level. But would you say that they were essential to get you there in the first place?
100%. No, 100%. I think you should always look back at the things that have gotten you to that place. Be like, thank you, and pat yourself on the back and say like, dude, Krusty, you were consistent with that one thing, whether it was going to the gym every day or whatever it is, But just being able and open to the possibility that it has its life span, you won't be doing that same thing over and over again expecting different results. It just won't happen,
For sure. No, I think that last point was really powerful. The fact that, sometimes you do have to go through these phases and these things and just be consistent with it to take yourself to a certain paradigm.
Sure.
And then once you're there and you've reached it, maybe that's not needed anymore for you to level up, but it was essential and like a pillar for you to get there in the first place.
Right? Yeah, and to learn a few lessons, and maybe to realize like, oh shit, that's not how I want to live my life. Maybe, right? I'm just throwing like a few, just like possibilities, right? Because yeah, it's really easy to get caught up on all the things that have gotten you to where you are.
And then just a final point on setting goals and smashing them in your case. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that you've managed to be, at least I know from the last 2 years, I think last year you were telling me like September you had already reached your 2020 goals. And this year, at least 2 or 3 of the goals that I vividly remember you telling me at the start of the year, by July you've already hit. Why do you think that's the case?
I don't know, man. It just happens. But no, I think, I really don't know. It just, I tend to maybe underestimate, which I think is like super normal, because like you don't know what is required of you until you realize, oh shit, like I just have to do this one thing, to accomplish that. I really don't know. I think part of it is the type of growth and the type of the type of growth that people are used to when they're walking down the traditional path, and the type of growth that society teaches us, it's so different to the growth curve that you can see in the entrepreneurial journey. Because when you decide on something and you commit to it and you just show up and do that one thing over and over again for 8 hours a day if needed, or 10, for an extended period of time, like the kind of gains you see, it's just like nothing else, you know. And so in life and in society teaches us to be usually well-rounded, and so we spend a bunch of time doing a lot of things, and so maybe you're investing 2 hours into something every single day, and another 2 hours into something, another 2 hours, right? But when you just when you focus on one thing at hand, one task at hand, and you kind of obsess over it, right, in your work life, then the type of gains that you make is just exponential. So that's another thing that people should keep in mind. The fact that when you start doubling down on it, it doesn't have to, you don't have to spend 8 hours a day, right, on something. Like maybe you have a full-time job, or you're a full-time student, you can invest 2-3 hours a day, but those 3 hours invested into one thing and not having the shiny object syndrome, that makes for really good gains. And that's why in 10 years you can accomplish more than one person in a lifetime that follows that traditional path, because you're literally just honing in on one single craft and you can become a true expert at it. Another thing I think comes down to like mastering niche things. If you think about it, for most people, e-commerce and paid ads and email marketing, the people listening to this podcast, maybe they're more used to it, because they're already in that sphere. But these skills they're pretty niche. Not many people think about them, or there's not a lot of experts in this space, and so when you become an expert at it, you're highly paid and you're highly sought out after. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Definitely. I mean, from being here, and maybe this is just me thinking, but one thing I've realized also is that you vastly underestimate how long it's going to take to do certain things, right?
Mm.
And I wouldn't even call that a weakness, because I think what that leads you on to do is it leads you on to fit everything you need to fit within a day. So you have a mindset of, you don't have a mindset of, oh, I'm going to work till X hour. You have a mindset of, I'm going to get X amount done.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you're able to hit the metrics and you're able to level up much faster than you would if it was just time-based, right? And the same way that you always say, if you're getting paid on time, you're going to get paid much less than you are on results. It's a similar kind of concept, but with the things you're doing.
Yeah, I think just time is like a human construct, and it serves it serves a big purpose, but you shouldn't be so rigid with it. I don't feel like time is the greatest metric. You shouldn't be timing yourself for the work you're doing, or it's just you just get it done. Obviously, and I say this, I'm not saying sleep if you have to, or you think it suits you, you can sleep 4 hours a night, right? But within within it making sense, I just think when you optimize for results and you optimize for output, I think that's a much greater equation.
The time, yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, and the testament is how far you've gotten in the time you've done it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man, for these insightful questions. It's definitely it sounds much more impressive than it actually is, but no. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this pod. I think we covered quite a lot of juicy stuff, and hopefully some of the strategies resonate with you, depending on what stage of the journey you're at, whether you're at 0 or 10K or 100K. I think these strategies will help you. But with that being said, any final comments?
Yeah, just a reminder once again that we always say, this was the journey you took, and these were the lessons you learned, and they can bring immense value to anyone listening in. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna have my journey and you're gonna have your journey. So, you know, take the lessons, learn, be inspired, but know that your journey is yours to craft.
That's facts. That's a really important point. Yeah. Everyone, you know, that's the beauty of the journey, that everyone's is different. So that's why it's cool coming together and sharing those lessons, because, you know, that's the beauty of life. 100%. But yeah, that's a good way to wrap it up. That's the art of e-commerce. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello, how are you doing? Go ahead and like the video if you haven't done so already, and make sure to subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, go ahead and leave us a review, and yeah, make sure to follow us there as well. But with that being said, we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.